Most wellness advice is built for calm, controlled lives. Your corporate lifestyle, corporate America, is volatile. It's volatile by default. That's the default factory setting. And when advice and programs and initiatives inside of corporate America ignore that, the people aren't failing, the system is. The system fails. You need foundations. Your team needs foundations, not motivation. My name is Brian. I help financial professionals build a life outside the office that actually holds up. It's built for stress, travel, family, and the pressure that you feel on a daily basis. I know your life because I sat in your seat. I lived it for 20 years. Welcome back to the podcast. This is the Success Lift Podcast, and my name is Brian Panuzzo, and I appreciate you being back with me again this week. We are now officially into the month of February. January is gone. You guys who have been OGs of the show know that every month or so, every couple months, I remind you how fast time flies. 1 month is down and many, many more will go just like that. We'll be talking about the summertime soon. I know we are in Arctic season of many people's lives inside of the United States. It is cold AF a lot of places. This is when a lot of the taxes and maybe the politics, depending on your politics, or whatever else you have to deal with living in a place like California or Florida, they really make sense. And obviously there's no tax issues in Florida, but maybe politics aren't for you in Florida. Maybe they are. I don't know. But I live in the Los Angeles area, and so I am with you in spirit if you're in a frozen tundra. Remember, get your butt on a treadmill, get your butt indoors, and move it. You can still do a lot of the things that you normally do. It's just a little bit harder. There's a little bit more obstacles. And it's one of the things we help a lot of our executives do who work in very cold areas of the country. We have tons of clients in the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area who work in Manhattan. We have clients in Chicago, Minnesota, Seattle, St. Louis. Charlotte's been cold. Most of our clients are in cold weather temperatures, and so we are encouraging them to do whatever it is that they can, given this season that we're in, and we're likely to be in for the next couple of months. So there's no reason to cry about it. I'm not asking you to be happy about it, but you can suck it up, do it anyway, because you're at work today, or maybe at work this week, and you will show up continually. And that's one of the themes that I always talk about. We do things in our professional life that sometimes we're just unwilling to do in our personal life. One more bit of housekeeping. It is the week of the Super Bowl here in the United States for most people. Hopefully you're listening to this during the week of February 2nd when the podcast actually drops. And it's a big week for a lot of people, especially some of my clients and friends in the Seattle and Boston area. They'll be rooting for their respective teams. Just to remind you that watching a football game on TV and stuffing thousands and thousands of calories down your throat are mutually exclusive, and you can do one or the other if you want to. I would love to see you watch the game, enjoy yourself, and wake up on Monday and feel pretty good and keep it moving. But I have suffered from the same thing that you have, where I combine those two actions, and it's almost like you can't do one without the other. And this is your permission to do whatever the hell it is you want to do on Sunday, if you're listening to this beforehand. And if you're not, now you got some information and a playbook for next year's Super Bowl or any other time. Go do whatever you want to do in the environment. Now, I know that's harder to do than it is easier. Simple to say is probably the right way. And that's what we help our clients do, both inside the office with our corporate teams and with our one-on-one clients. We help you build systems to live a different life, to fundamentally change the way you go about things. And so I thought this week, I want to talk a little bit more about I want to get inside the office for a lot of us, because that's where we live our daily lives. And as I think you know, if you're brand new here, I spent 20 years inside of corporate America. I know what it's like to experience long days and long commutes. I know what it's like to experience having to travel for work. I know what it's like to experience the pressure and the stress and the burnout, the lack of energy, and the constant expectations to perform while trying to hold it all down at home. And when I say hold it down, for many people listening to this, maybe you have a spouse at home who's the primary caretaker. You have somebody kind of operating the household. But what I mean is like being the man. And don't worry, ladies, I got you. Like the man, the woman, in air quotes, is a figure of speech, all right? And so that's a hard job to have. It's a hard job to be able to turn off when you walk in the door and compartmentalize the things that are going on in your professional life to then come home and be a great partner and parent. And it's something that I struggled with for a long time. It's something that the clients that we work with are constantly struggling with, hopefully before they come to us. Now, it's always a challenge, and they always have to re-up their commitment to it. But it's something that we work on, because if we can fundamentally change that relationship where we're able to go do our jobs and we're able to come home and operate as high-performing people, human beings, that's the best of both worlds. Because the stuff at the office is not going to turn off. It's not going to get less busy, for major periods of time of the year. It's not just you're not going to have this clear runway. There's always going to be things on the runway. And what I noticed during my 20-year Wall Street career, corporate America career, was that a lot of times the firms that we work for, the people that we work for, the teams that we work for, if you get down to it, they do have your best interests at heart. I don't think, corporate America is built from the framework of let's see how quickly we can burn every single one of our leaders the F out, and how much we can stress them out, and how much we can take their energy and just suck it out of them, and how out of control we can make them feel. It's not this diabolical plan from the top down to suck the life out of you. But what happens is we get caught up in the culture. We get caught up in the routine. We get caught up in the expectations of ourselves to be high performers at what we do, and we put ourselves last. And so I wanted to identify a few things and kind of riff a little bit. And ultimately, like for me, I titled this "Why Most Wellness Advice Fails for Corporate America," because I want to talk a little bit about inside and outside the office and the lack of durability of most plans, most wellness initiatives inside the office too, because that's the thing. I worked at massive companies, global banks, multinational banks, and I worked at smaller, kind of what we would call boutique firms, that, had a little bit more flexibility. Maybe it came across as them caring more because it was a bit more personal because the firm was smaller and you could do more intimate things. But I don't think a bank like a UBS, which is where I spent a good chunk of my career, cared any less about me than a smaller firm like Seaport Global, which was one of the smaller firms that I worked for. I don't think that was necessarily the case. It's just when there's hundreds of thousands of people, and I don't even know what UBS is. UBS probably doesn't employ hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of people versus a couple thousand or a couple hundred or maybe a few dozen at your firm. I don't think they care any less. It's just harder to get that chain down the line of people feeling connected. And so during my time in seats like yours, I watched many different initiatives and advice get rolled out again and again. And it always sounded good. Most of the time, it was very well-intentioned, and I would say maybe even all the time. Now, I don't know the intentions of the people who were rolling them out, but I can make an assumption, right? And I don't know, it just never worked in real life. And that's why I wanted to do this episode and talk a little bit. It's because why? Why did that happen? Why do most wellness programs, advice, why does it fail high performers, right? And what actually holds up for us as high-performing individuals who have the weight of the world on our shoulders? And from the leaders that I've worked with and the leaders that I've talked to, now I have, 60 plus leaders inside of my program working one-on-one with me. And we've worked now with a dozen companies and leadership teams that have these goals for these employees and for themselves. Their primary goals to me has always been expressed three things. I mean, in general, if we want to just bucket them, right? More energy. Most of the people that I work with are lacking energy and vitality for their entire life. They have these fits and starts, and they primarily direct most of their energy to their 9 to 5. Now, I don't really work with anybody who has a 9 to 5. I have people that have 6:30s to 8:30s and 7 a.m.s to 6 p.m.s and 48-hour business trips and 3 client dinners a week. So I don't have 9 to 5s in my program. If you're a 9 to 5er with an hour lunch, my content is probably not for you, okay? And so we want to increase energy. Our leaders want to help their teams increase their energy because typically it's just being constantly sucked out of them like a vacuum. They want to reduce their stress levels. Those two things go hand in hand. Stress is never really going to leave, so we help them develop systems to be able to compartmentalize it and balance it. Think of a scale, okay? So we want to make sure we're constantly feeding the side of the scale that counterbalances the stress, because the stress and the pressure is probably not going away, and most importantly, it's not in our control. And that's the last part. That's the totality of it. If it's a triangle, the holy trinity is more energy, less stress, which ultimately results in you feeling in more control of your circumstances. Because when we don't feel like we're in control of our circumstances, we feel like we're this, cog in this wheel that continues to go round and round, and we don't have any control over it. And so I mentioned that I've sat in different environments and been through different wellness programs. And I specifically remember, multiple occasions, but 2 in general. One was working, at a firm like UBS, a very large organization. And in a large organization, it's going to be very hard to have, extremely niched down solutions. Now, we've worked with organizations like Wells Fargo, who's just as large as UBS, if not larger. And we've brought extremely niche down solutions to smaller parts of the organization, team by team, leadership team by leadership team. And that's worked really, really well. But that has to be deployed from the ground up. And although extremely successful, is more of a grassroots sitch. So when the company is going to deliver a wellness offering or improvements to their entire employee base, it's going to be fairly generic. It's going to be online. It's going to be remote. There's going to be modules. It's going to be on the employee. It's going to be self-directed. It's going to be on the employee to educate themselves. Now, we can get into the quality of the advice. Some of it was okay. Some of it was not so okay. But in general, it's going to rely upon the individual to take initiative. And while you need to have agency and you need to take control of your own journey, we know that most people don't do that. And it's not because they don't want to. It's sometimes they don't know how to do the most impactful and effective things. And that's where having a leader, a coach, having accountability, building that in really works well. And so at a large firm like a UBS, like a Wells Fargo, like a large global bank, something like that, Fortune 500 companies, which we've worked with, many of them, over a dozen, which is a pretty cool stat. I looked at how many Fortune 500 companies we've worked with leaders and teams from. I think it's like 12 or 13 or something like that, which is pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of that. And so large organizations, tough to build out a grassroots, ground up sitch, unless you have leaders like the people who have hired me, who want to bring this to their teams. And that is an option. If you are somebody sitting in a large organization, give me a call. We have a program for your leadership team, okay? We're working on the tens of thousands of people at once program. But in places that can be impacted, like my last firm that I worked for, which was a smaller organization, they did a lot more initiatives, a lot more lunch and learns and programs. And I distinctly remember sitting in a conference room during a lunch, which anyone who comes to speak at a firm, especially a financial services firm in an office, if you want anybody to show up, you better bring lunch. And lunch better be good. It better not suck. Because what we do is we leave the desk and we go in and we preview and we check out, is this worth spending 20 minutes listening to based on the quality of the lunch? It has nothing to do with your credentials, what you've accomplished, or the value that you can provide. Is the lunch look good? Does the lunch look good? All right, I'll sit down. I'll sit down and wait. And then what I'm doing is I'm texting 6 other people from the conference room, letting them know, don't come in, it sucks. Or come on in, it's pretty good. All right. So make sure if you're going to have a conversation with a bunch of employees at an office, bring some good food. Okay. And so I remember sitting in this conference room, and this was, I would say, in the second stage of my Wall Street career, in the last 5 years, where I actually was doing a lot of the things that I do right now. And I had it together, and I was educating myself, and I knew a lot. And now I didn't know shit relative to maybe what I know now, 7 or 8 years later. But I knew a lot more than most other people. And I was curious. I was curious if this person who was giving the talk wasn't going to know much, or it was just going to be the same kind of fluffy, BS that we always hear. And she was good. She was really good. She started talking about things that you should be doing, types of nutrition, how to move your body, like how to just generally be healthier. But the huge mistake that this very nice, very knowledgeable woman made, and I was asking some questions and I was trying to engage and get other people involved, is she didn't know her audience. And let me explain real quick, okay? She was promoting a predominantly plant-based diet. Now, the HR person at the last firm that I worked for was a vegan. She was a wonderful woman. She was a vegan. And so, of course, her bias, her personal bias, brought in somebody that she knew, that she trusted, all good, that was pretty close to a vegan. Now, she wasn't a vegan, she was a pescatarian. Pescatarian is someone that only eats fish. So they don't eat chicken, they don't eat red meat, I believe, technically. But she was definitely promoting not eating red meat. And if you know my audience, if you know my avatar, if you know the type of people that I work with, that's like 3 dinners a week for them at steakhouses in cities like Manhattan, in New York City, in Chicago, and everywhere else. And so when you're speaking to a room full of savage idiots, for lack of a better phrase, with love to all my friends, who are about to go out to a ribeye and Cabernet dinner tonight with clients, and you start talking about not eating red meat and only eating fish and a lot of vegetables, all of a sudden I could just see everybody's brain shut off. And so you have to understand who you're speaking to and what their challenges are. And they can't just go to Smith & Wollensky and order, the sea bass. Now they could, but I don't know. I don't really suggest that my clients do that. We give them tools to order within the confines of the menu. And more importantly, in my opinion, the confines of the environment that they're in. And so if there are 8 people at a dinner and 7 guys throw in, fillets, ribeyes, and New York strips, and you order the tilapia, like, you're out, dude. I'm not doing business with you tomorrow. And so that's why it happens. That's why people break down at dinners. And so they need certain standards to be able to walk into a restaurant like that. And so that's the opening of like why I think people really struggle. And so let's talk quickly about what to do, like, and how does it happen, and why does an executive stop prioritizing themselves? Because like, I don't think they ever make a conscious choice. I never made a conscious choice of like, hey, you know what? Like, I'm just gonna not worry about me and my health. All right. It's not because like they don't care. Like, I didn't make a conscious, like, you know what, right now, I've decided I no longer care about my mental and physical health, my energy levels, my stress levels, how my body looks, how I'm showing up at home, and I'm just gonna go all in on my career. Like, it doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen that way, right? But everything else in our lives feels more urgent. Making money, getting the promotion, climbing the ladder, whatever it is, it feels more urgent because there are delayed consequences with the other things. I talked about that recently. the consequences in our personal lives are more delayed than in our professional life. And so it feels more urgent, right? And not only do we don't just completely put our families aside, like that takes priority. So those deadlines, like, work deadlines, family deadlines, these all come first, and we get crumbs. Like we get crumbs. Self-care is this option, right? It's not a foundation. It's not a foundation. And over time, at least for me and many, many, many people that I've worked with, this, I'll prioritize myself later mentality just gets buried. It's your default setting. And so you do. So it's not like here's the thing, like I rarely looked broken on the outside. I wanted to think about my words there for a second, because I think this is important. A high performer, I don't want to say rarely, a high performer often looks broken, that does not look broken. The issue is that they have it together on the outside. Now, do they look their best? No. A lot of people don't. Most people don't. But it's not like there's a small percentage of people walking around where you're like, dude, you got to get it together. And maybe it's not small. Maybe it's larger than that. But in general, a lot of us are pretty good at presenting ourselves fairly well. Okay? And so we get on this path of, promotions, income, titles, everything keeps rising one way, and everything else, energy, relationships, mental and physical fitness, keep going the other way. And I believe that was like the cost of doing business for me. And I don't know if that's the way you feel, but that's how I felt. And the moments that I did have to reflect, it was like, all right, well, yeah, it's just like how it is. It's like just the way it goes. And that burnout, that hole that we dig, if you think about literally digging a hole, you don't pick up a shovel and have a 10-foot deep trench in seconds. It takes time. It's a little bit of dirt at a time, a little bit of dirt at a time. And that's what burnout shows up as. It doesn't happen you don't wake up one day and go, I'm burnt out. You do feel that one day. But in reality, my hole was dug over the course of 15 years. And then when we finally realize it, we expect to get out of the hole in 1.5 weeks or 15 weeks, or, hey, sorry, it ain't even going to take 15 months. It may take longer than that if it's 15 years like me. And so when you realize that, you understand that you now have a structural problem that needs to be dealt with standards, not overhauls. And that's the thing that I think the mistake a lot of people make is this burnout and this energy suck, for lack of a better phrase, is a long-term behavior pattern. It's not an event. It's not one bad week. It's hundreds of small decisions that get made over time. It's the skipped workouts here and there. It's too much at a work dinner. It's avoiding a hard conversation with your wife when you haven't been around lately because or when you haven't been mentally present. How many times that I, had a conversation with my wife and she could just tell that I was in another universe, thinking about something else, not even remotely mentally there. Physically, yes, but not even remotely. Things like, poor habits like poor sleep, staying up late, scrolling too much, catching up on work too much, all these things compound over time. And one of the things that I am really proud of that we do inside of my one-on-one program, but especially inside of the team program, the leadership program that we run inside of organizations, is we shift the conversation, we shift the actions from doing more to developing and holding up standards. Because I've realized that our lives need an operating system. And that operating system needs to be able to hold up under pressure. And the mistake that people make is that they build this comeback plan for comeback season. And it's only comeback season for very short periods of time because you don't actually have much of a runway to focus solely on things like this. In fact, I don't even know if you have any runway. It's one of those Caribbean islands that have the tiny little runway and the plane has to like dive bomb down when you land. And so that's why we build in small, boring actions into the executives' lives that we work with, because that's what wins in high pressure situations. I'm not a military person. I did not have enough courage to explore that path. I was soft. I could have gone to Army, by the way, to play basketball. The head coach at Army was like really on my ass recruiting me. And I was like, no chance, dude. Like, I can't. I'm too much of a you-know-what to do that, to commit to that long term. But my understanding, knowing some friends who are veterans, is like, and obviously you see this in movies and things like that, the precision at which they do things, making your bed, taking apart and putting your gun back together, the precision. It's like, why does the corner need to be folded this way with your sheets? What relevance does that have in a firefight, in a war? Well, it's a standard. And when things get crazy and chaotic, you need to be able to fall to your standards. And that's what we end up bringing inside of these organizations, is a operating system that develops standards to hold up under pressure. Because when you can do that, then you can create this energy engine. And energy is the performance multiplier. It's the leverage, it's the fulcrum for my financial professionals. It's the fulcrum security in the cap structure. If you can show up every day and not feeling like you're in this never-ending cycle of just having the life sucked out of you, physically and mentally, having a pound or two here and there, spike 5 or 7 pounds over the holidays, only take 2 or 3 off. Do your January challenge. We just finished January. What is everyone going to do? If you completed some, higher intensity, aggressive challenge in January, dry January, or, fitness stuff, or I know people that ran every day, even despite the cold weather, or got on their Peloton every day, or got to the gym, 6 days a week or whatever. And I'm very active on LinkedIn, by the way. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, come find me. I post a lot of content on there. And LinkedIn is a great platform, especially for me and my avatar. But like, some of the posts are just freaking brutal. It's like people just taking these victory laps of a new certification and a new job. And I'm proud and honored to announce that I did this, and pat me on the back. And that's cool. I get it. We should all do that. You should champion yourself and be your biggest cheerleader. But I'm seeing a lot of like end of January, I did it posts. And I just wonder, where are these people going to be in not even 6 months, but 6 weeks? And are their lives going to be back to the way they were last March 7th or last October, 20th, when they were like, oh, well, here we go, another holiday season coming up. And so if we can change that fundamentally from the ground up via performance operating system, creating higher standards and consistency, layer in accountability on top of that, now you're talking. Now you have this lighter fluid that you're putting onto a fire. And when we have more energy, less, I don't even want to say less stress, because it's not going to go away. The stress isn't going to go away. But the ability to deal with it and compartmentalize it and keep it where it needs to be, and understand that you have this scale that you can counterbalance. Better energy improves decision qualities, it improves patience, it improves your leadership presence, it improves your ability to deal with that stress like I'm talking about. Everything else gets better. As a leader, not only are you doing the right thing for your team as human beings, but selfishly, you are creating a more productive and probably ultimately profitable team or organization or division. And so we redefine discipline, because discipline and motivation is what people think they need. And while, yes, there are going to be moments that you do need to grind, like I've talked about recently, if you just operated your personal life the way you do your career, you do need some grit once in a while. You do need to do it anyway, but most people just attempt to grind harder. Discipline isn't grinding harder. It's doing the basics, understanding what those basics are, knowing what the minimum effective dose is. Here's another thing that I've noticed. Most executives that I work with, especially the people that are not like super high touch one-on-one with me, the people inside of the corporate program, by the way, inside our team program, everyone has unlimited one-on-one access to a coach, which is the missing link for most people. Group accountability and one-on-one connection, which is why programs like the one at UBS, I thought, was well-intended, but just dead on arrival. It's like completely dead on arrival. A pescatarian walking into a Wall Street conference room talking about not eating red meat, dead on arrival. Like, you're dead. No one's listening. But building this operating system based on performance, higher energy, less stress, increasing standards, layering accountability on top. Now you're talking about like some real leverage. And it's being able to do some of these things when life gets busy. Showing up when the week isn't ideal. That's the grind part. But protecting those fundamentals. And most people that we work with in these environments, they don't actually know what to do to get the best results. They're not doing the right things. They're chasing a lot of the flashy stuff, a lot of the trendy stuff, a lot of the sort of old school, education that we used to think, more cardio, less carbs. And I eat 500 grams of carbs a day, maybe more. I'm like, depending on what body fat scale you're using, DEXA is the kind of gold standard, I guess you could call it, but also will show you a slightly higher body fat. I'm 11, 12% DEXA. If I took like one of the body scales, like the weight scales or in body or whatever, it'd be sub 10%. Like not many people know what to actually do. They know what not to do. Everyone knows what not to do, but not many people know what to do. So we help them and we educate. If I can educate you, you can go take these principles and this information and you can apply it everywhere. That's why virtual knowledge oftentimes can beat, in-person like training and coaching. In-person therapists are great. Trainers in the gym are great. But nobody's going to be with you 99.9% of the time. So you have to be able to deliver that message and that education to empower people to do something different. And that's what I think our program does, good programs do, is they build systems for chaotic environments when most wellness advice is built for calm, controlled lives. Your corporate lifestyle, corporate America is volatile. It's volatile by default. That's the default factory setting. And when advice and programs and initiatives inside of corporate America ignore that, the people aren't failing, the system is. The system fails. You need foundations. Your team needs foundations, not motivation. Now, as a leader, it is your job to motivate them. But they don't need motivation to do better. So if you are a high performer, if you are a leader, and you know something needs to change, but you're done with your plan continually falling apart, the moment that work starts to heat up, which is like yesterday, will be tomorrow, which will be next week, that's exactly why we built the Performance Foundations system inside of our program. It's for real corporate life, real corporate life. And so if anything that I just said is of interest to you, we do have a few openings for the first quarter. We are taking on a couple of new teams. I'll include some of the details in the show notes. Check it out. If you want to have a conversation with me, you know where to find me, brian@thesuccesslift.com, or you can text me, 917-709-4283. Have an amazing week. Hope your Super Bowl boxes come in. Hope your squad wins. And I'll see you back here next week.